Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Relationship Mastery Series, where we focus on principles to a passionate life and relationships and dynamite families. And I'm Alan Darbonne. I'll be your host for this series. And I've very fortunately pulled together 25 experts from all over the world and wonderful experts that are going to share their years of experience, their life, uh, their visions, and the way that they relate to this whole topic, and particularly in terms of how to find that relationship, how to keep that relationship, how to repair it when we get in trouble, and how this affects the families and creates dynamite children or creates problems. So we're going to go into that at different levels. And today I'm very, very excited to have on the show Theresa Vigarino. And I'll tell you a little bit about Theresa. Theresa is pretty wide dimension in terms of what she brings to this field. She's a certified transformational life coach, a relationship expert. She's an author and a speaker. And Theresa has been very crucial in transforming the process in the lives of men and women in 14 different countries. She believes in changing the world one heart at a time, and I'm definitely on that train. She brings a unique culmination of healing modalities to ensure a high level of success with her clients. She does deep work in the intimate relationships, and she has a strong sense that in intimate relationships is where the deepest wounds are revealed. From her own life story, which she's going to tell us more about, and her experience and training, Theresa transformed her own life with this very work. So Theresa brings emotional healing, neuroscience of change, and spiritual consciousness awareness into her work. And I can't wait to get into some discussion about these elements and how she weaves these together. And Theresa lives her life to be of service to others. Now, I want to let the audience know at the end of the interview, Theresa has agreed to give a wonderful gift to everyone, a free gift. And so stay tuned to the last moments because she'll be telling you about that gift. And I will tell you exactly how to get into the links to be able to have access to that. So, Theresa, without any further ado, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you today.
The pleasure is all mine. It's an honor to be here. I love the mission that you're on, and I'm truly honored to be a part of that mission. As you know, we're on similar paths of healing the world one heart at a time, right?
Right, right, very much so. And we have some similar backgrounds in terms of our interests in neuroscience and the
Yes.
recognition of how important that can add to relationship work. So
Yes.
I'm going to jump right in if it's okay with you.
I'd
And
love it. Yes.
I'd like you to share with the audience a bit of your story and how you got into this whole field of working with relationships and healing hearts and this kind of thing.
Certainly. Well, it started with me. I had to, from a long history of broken relationships, divorces, single motherhood, I knew that I was the common denominator in every experience I had in my life. So I knew that at one point I had to do the work to heal myself. I could no longer blame circumstance, blame my childhood, blame role models I've had, and blame other people. I finally had to take responsibility and say the buck stops here. If I'm going to have the life I want, I have to turn over the stones. The work starts with the individual. And so I was very fortunate to have had some amazing mentors in my life. I knew I would always do some type of counsel work. And at the time I was living in Lake Tahoe and raising two children by myself. And my choices were either, drive the hour and a half through the snow and the woods and the mountains to go get the MFCC or therapist license, or do distance learning while I raised my children and was overcoming an autoimmune disease. So that's how I came into the field of coaching, and had an amazing mentor, Dr. David Kruger, who
Oh, wow.
taught me about the neuroscience of even relationships. And that's when the deep work really for myself began, and I could understand the workings of my own mind, how my traumas were continuing cycles in my life, and what I could do to change that so I could live the love story that I really wanted. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yes, you have worked with some wonderful people, and it's great how the universe provides those when we're open to them. And
amen to that.
So, with this experience that you've had, and your own experience, what's your own sense of what are the necessary elements that come into making up a healthy relationship?
There's so many elements. First and foremost is I believe that the partners, or you start with the individual, right? That you go through the process of your own healing journey, of understanding how your emotional wounds are repeating themselves, understanding how your brain, your subconscious mind, is kind of setting you up to keep repeating those cycles unless and until you do the work to change that, right? And that is really a journey in and of itself. And when you reach a level of healing, I believe with your emotions, understanding your brain patterns, understanding how you are repeating things, definitely, I have my list, as you know. That is a lot of part of the gift that I'm giving away today, of 14 elements that I'll briefly go over if you'd like me to, that
I'd love
I
that.
really feel are the components that are necessary to really have that marriage that sizzles, that you have the foundation to work through anything that comes your way. And, you can work on these different things at different times and remember to bring them back to the surface. And it's just like a forever module that you can keep improving upon. So again, I already mentioned emotional healing and awareness, because so often we lead to projecting. When we're suffering individually over something, sometimes we take it out on our partners. We do, right?
We
So it's
sure do.
important to know your own emotional state. Spiritual enlightenment, this is really important for me. And what that means is that you understand that we all have a spirit, right? And that we have this deep respect for one another because we both have that, no matter what's going on around us, and always seeking to have a deeper understanding of the big questions of why we're here, and being able to ponder that with somebody else is, it's such a wonderful blessing. The neuroscience of transformation, knowing your own mind, knowing how your mind speaks to you, knowing how your fears are triggered, and how the projection or the blaming or the unhappiness can really be caused from your own neuroscience patterns, right?
Right. Yeah, that aspect where we've all got this same human brain, and we'd better know a little bit about it, or we're going to get down some roads and don't know how we got there.
Well, it's so true, Alan. And do you know that Dr. Bruce Lipton, and Stanford just last month came out with a new article where I don't know how they find this out because I'm not a neuroscientist, but the neuroscientists found out that the way we live our lives and what is showing up in our reality, 95 to 99% of that is based in our subconscious belief systems. So again, this is like super crucial work, is to understand like the workings of our own minds, right? And every single one is different. And then physical chemistry, and I don't mean, and I have sexual connection, those are different. You want to enjoy looking at your mate. These are for people that, like, if you're single and you have your criteria of what you want, you're placing your order to the universe, right?
Right.
Sexual connection, of course, that's important to have that closeness. And then intimacy. So even though those sound similar, they're all different. And intimacy is just allowing yourself to be open and vulnerable in your deepest spots in your heart, and the honesty.
Yeah.
Want me to keep going?
Sure.
Okay. Core values. I find that this is so important. Core values such as monogamy. core values such as do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Like, people need to be really aware of the person that you're about to, have your intimacy with. And even, if you're in a relationship, take a look at this and see if you're matched in this area, because I think it's crucial that you have similar core values. Not everything has to be identical.
Right.
But if you have a foundation, that you can grow upon that, right? I believe that we're teammates on the same team. So often,
Yes.
couples, because of stress, family life, whatever the stress may be, we can end up projecting that and just, taking it out on each other when we forget we're on the same team.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Having fun together. My husband and I are going on, it's going to be 90 degrees here in Northern California today, so we're getting on the motorcycle and we're going to the coast. We're going to the beach this afternoon. Having fun. Too often, because of life, managing kids, busy schedules, money, all of that, we forget how to have fun. And let's face it, sometimes we just got to lighten up to have that wonderful relationship that we want. Which leads into enjoying enriching activities. My husband and I, we're best friends, so we're rock climbers. That's our favorite activity together. I'm trying to get him into yoga. He's not so keen on that, but like today, it's motorcycle riding because that's what he likes. So not my favorite thing, but gonna do it because it's enriching for both of us to do an activity together.
Right.
And then I really love, Alan, the life path soul purpose. This I don't believe is a requirement, as long as you're supportive of one another. But I have that now, and I can see the depth and the richness of our communications, of our belief systems, of what we, our ahas and our revelations and epiphanies we get to share with one another. And it is such a beautiful thing to have somebody that isn't squashing your bright ideas or your humanitarian thoughts or whatever the case may be. If you have somebody that has similar goals, or at very least is supportive of your big dreams, right?
Right. Yeah, that's something that is crucial and sometimes underlooked, the power of that. It's one of the things, as they've done studies of strong families throughout the world and strong relationships throughout the world. It is a factor that shows up, and I've definitely seen it in all my many years of working with people. And I know you've worked all over the world, and I have too. And relationships have certain things in common. I mean, one thing we all have in common, relationship, but then beyond that, there are certain things that that work and make things stronger, and certain things that undermine. And having that sense of purpose, I've witnessed that in families where if the couple has that as one of their passions, they begin to focus on things as being larger, maybe more important than their little ego squabbles and everything.
That's right.
And lo and behold, the kids that are watching that automatically begin to pick up that same thing. And they also begin to have a level of security out of a sense of, hey, it's not all about me.
So true. It's not, my daughter's name is Jessica, and a wise man said to me once, well, you just have to explain to your kids that they don't live at like www.jessicasworld.com. But kids, sorry, Jessica, but kids, they have this, I don't want to say narcissism, but it kind of is, right? Everything is about them. And, I want to also speak to the blended families that are listening, or divorced parents that have children. Mine are older now. My daughter's 25, my son's 21. It's never too late. It's, and my husband is their step parent, but what an awesome example of having this healthy relationship that they now have. And even though it's not their biological parent, they still get to see what a healthy relationship looks like. Right. And we really do live this. What I'm sharing right now is really our relationship. And I want to share with people, when you are divorced and you're single and you're doing the healing work and you do want to bring somebody in your life, I believe when it is the right person or the best person for you, it's going to be an addition to your children's life. It doesn't have to be this, horrendously stressful situation that we're that we see in so many families,
Mm.
and more families are blended than not these days. So I
Right.
just want to be a hope and inspiration to others, not just as the teacher here, but also as the one who's experienced this.
Right, right. And that gives valuable insights that are tremendously important. Yeah.
It is, and I want everyone to still have hope no matter what the storyline is, no matter what your plots and your themes have been running around your life in the past and your relationship stories, whatever they may be, it doesn't matter. It does matter, but what I'm saying is you can have hope and be inspired that you can do the healing work, and you can be that in your family, even if you've experienced divorce and the children,
Mhm.
are split between families.
Right,
You
right.
can still be that beacon, and they are still affected, even if they're older,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
right? They'll
And
always look to you as being the parent.
yeah. And in those situations where it really is called for and the kids get it that, yeah, a divorce happened, and they have some understanding, as much as they can for whatever age level they are. Uh,
Yes.
and it's what those hearts carry beyond that divorce that makes a huge, huge difference. And
Exactly. And I had the world's worst divorce, let me tell you. Well, I mean, it was bad, but I learned a lot from that experience. That was definitely the dark night
I
of my
just heard the
soul.
audience scream, "No, you haven't."
Right. Everybody's is the worst, right? Mine just happened to take like 10 years. So it was a lot of limbo in that
Mm,
process. But,
mm,
through that experience, I was able to gather really from what was lacking to now what I have, and I was able to come up with this formula, if you will,
mhm,
of these different components that really will make up this blissful marriage that and relationship story that people really, really want. So after the life path and soul purpose, respect. You
mhm.
have to respect your partner,
Yeah,
what they want to do, who they are as a person, their dreams, their, like the lifting up, I think is the same thing as respect. When you're
mhm,
sarcastic and you're cutting your relationship down or whatever, that stems from the person's insecurity, I believe. So having
mm,
respect that that's another human being that has their own heart, their own mind, and too often you see from stress and maybe disappointments within relationships, the cutting
mm.
down process, the having fun at your partner's expense, the putting them down in some way, even if it's subconscious, but be aware of that. Are you, the tongue can breathe life into something or death.
Yeah, 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 very much so. And my sense is, you cannot have intimacy without respect.
It's true.
You
That's not
cannot have
true
intimacy
intimacy then.
because intimacy, really, at the deepest level, is being open and wanting to know that other person, that
Yes,
other amazing human being and soul that you're in relationship with.
that's right.
And if disrespect comes in, you're closing all of the windows to be able to see into that person.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's a nice way of putting it. And it's true. There's a heart behind the heart, right? There's a you behind the you. There's this innermost part that if your partner doesn't feel safe in sharing, it's not going to happen. And that is that desire for that deeper intimacy where we can, really open up and see behind and be able to express that with one another. And ultimately, and I'm so fortunate to have this with my Victor. It's so funny. My last name is Vigarino. For years, I would say V as in Victor. And then I said, I'm going to be the victor of my life. And plop, my husband's name is Victor. I'm like,
yeah.
that's no coincidence. I've been manifesting him my entire life since I knew how to spell my last name. It just took a while to find him.
Yeah,
And we both had to go through our healing
there
journey, right?
a little bit of evidence for Bruce Lipton's work right there.
That's exactly right. I mean, I haven't even told him this. I keep saying this on all the different podcast interviews I've been on recently, and I think I should probably tell him because what a neat story, right? I mean, the power that we have to create is just
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
yeah, it
So
is.
then after the respect, Alan, I have communication. The art and science of communication
Wow.
is the make it or break it,
Mm,
I think. I
yeah,
mean, because it all boils down to how we represent, how we communicate to our relationship and how we receive information, right? And truly recently I was in some advanced communication courses, and it, it's interesting how he put this, that to be a successful communicator is really predicated on whether or not the person you're talking to is receiving the information in the way you really intended it.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah.
It's up to the one doing the talking, right? So we have to learn, like, how does our mate or our potential spouse, once you're in a relationship, first learn how to communicate your feelings in a deep way without being offensive or putting the other person on the defense, right? And
Right.
respectfully, honesty is the number one name of the game in this communication aspect of relationship, is being honest, right? And so often in relationship comes blame, when our needs aren't being met, comes shame, comes, the projection, like we mentioned earlier. How many times have you been just in a bad mood because of something else, and you're snappy to your spouse who has nothing to do with why you were in the bad mood to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's just like what we do sometimes as human beings. If we can, in that nanosecond, say, wait a minute, my husband had nothing to do with my bad mood today,
Mm-hmm.
or if I have this autoimmune disease, sometimes I'm sick, sometimes I don't feel well. And I can remember my children when they were young and this happened, they would say, are you mad? And I'm like, no, why? And they're like, well, it's because of the look on your face.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, I have a migraine. My stomach hurts. Nothing to do with you. But do you see how a child can perceive, because I was suffering physically, that they thought I was mad at them?
Right. Right.
Interesting, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure grown-ups do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I do it once a day.
And it's just being aware, awareness, like I said at the beginning, awareness is the key to all of this.
Mm.
But this, I think, is a good foundation to put together and to get our brains working and our hearts open and, start thinking about how we can better our relationships. And I always say, because at the end of your life, what's going to matter is not what you have, but who
Mm.
you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
My best friend's mother just passed away yesterday, and her family, the family was everything to her. And from her husband to her
Mm.
siblings to the grandmother to her children to the grandchildren, the legacy of love between this family, she was that rock.
Right. Right.
And
Mm.
we bless her as she transitions to the next realm. But through that, it's the last thing I want to mention is the faith that you can do this, the faith that you
Mm.
can work through it, the faith that if you don't know how, you'll learn.
Mm.
Some people say, well, I'm just
Yeah.
not good at communicating. Well, maybe you just haven't learned yet.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And so much of this is habit. Uh,
It is.
what we've learned, it comes out in our habit, and that becomes the form of ourselves and our relationship. And so taking that very responsibility aspect that you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
being responsible and being willing to look inside of, well, let's see, could I be contributing to this in some way? We'll
Yes.
often see that there's something that's kind of like an automatic pattern that we're acting out. And
Very true.
if we're honest with ourselves, we'll see that and then realize, I need to work on that. And then we may let our spouse or our partner know that I'm going to be working on this, and it's a
Yes.
work in progress. Give me some feedback, give me some support, whatever. Um, but um, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
paying attention to what we're practicing, because we're always practicing something. So,
That's right.
and that's where
And
that
that's where the
awareness,
neuroscience of understanding how to create new patterns in your life,
right.
and and really knowing what your triggers are, that trigger that pattern, right? And I would say, I want to add to this that just came to my awareness, just the humility and the humbleness that it takes to, be in a relationship, to admit, hey, I blew it. I lost my temper. I said some things I shouldn't have. I really apologize. And I am a firm believer in apologizing. I mean, like my kids, too many children grow up with parents that lose their temper or what have you, right? I mean, we're none of us, it's about progress, not perfection.
Of course.
And, the apology doesn't happen. Like, kids grow up never hearing that. And I was one of those children. So I really made it, I determined myself early that, when I was off base, I would be the first to admit it. So, bringing that humility in, admitting that, I could have said that better, that was mean or that was inappropriate or whatever the case may be, to have that humbleness in your heart. As Dr. Wayne Dyer, bless his soul, said so eloquently, do you want to win or do you want to be happy?
Right, right. Yeah, and your kids are lucky, and Victor's lucky that you have that awareness. And
not to say I don't try to be right. Truth be told, I've been going, wait a minute, Mom can be argumentative. I got opinions like everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We love to be right. I don't know what that is. It's the ego, I guess. We just love to know it, and we love to be right, right? So,
yeah.
But I've learned that I've raised some really strong children. My daughter is a lawyer. My son's in business. I mean, I've raised some kids. The pendulum swings, right? I was from the generation where children are seen and not heard, and my kids are, they have a voice, and it is fine for them to express it to me, and it's always has been. So they're stronger in that, maybe sometimes a little too strong. And I believe that's the way, each generation evolves. And, I hear all this about the millennials, and my husband and I discuss this a lot. And I'm like, I love it that these kids are growing up with like freedom of expression. Because that for so many generations was just not allowed, and it was such hard work, and some people never mastered that. So I see things. I see the glass is always full, right? Just how much is it full? So for me, I see the goodness. They know what they want. They know how they want to be treated, and they're expressive as a generation, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it would be great if our generation develops the freedom for hearing and being able to hear them and what they're actually saying, instead of so quickly being threatened and wanting to stuff it back down inside them.
Right.
What
we
they're
all
saying.
Remember being kids.
Yeah.
We've all, if you're alive and you're adult, you were a kid once. Too often, I think parents, are still wanting to treat their kids like they were when they were 2, and they forget what it was like to start really having your own personality and separating from the parents as they gain their independence and all that. The parents need to remember what it was like to think differently, and to times to be different, and remind yourself what it's like to be in those shoes. Have a lot more compassion and understanding.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, Theresa, I'm just realizing what the time is, and I knew our time would pass fast.
It sure did.
Before we take the next step, is there any last tip you would like to leave with our audience as a tip that they can take to their relationships right now?
I would say if you've been in a long relationship and you're looking to be re-inspired, to, go through some of the things that we talked about and pick something to focus on. Pick one thing. If we can move the needle 1%, this has been worthwhile.
Yeah.
And to pick something that, you really want to share with your partner, and the two of you can come together with it and work towards that. If you're single, I want you to have hope. I want you to be inspired and believe in love again, no matter what your past history has been, that there is a big world full of people, and you can have that love story you dream of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I would love to have you share more specifically what your gift is.
Yes.
our audience?
Well, it's called the Miraculous Relationship Assessment. And I know it sounds very scientific. I had to throw a science word in there just because we were talking a little bit about the science of life. But basically, it goes through every one of these topics that I discussed and gives a brief description and then assessing where you are in your relationship. Because, if we're not aware, we can't change things we're not aware of. So it's really just about getting you thinking and getting you really being open and honest with yourself. Have your partner do it if you're with somebody or in a marriage. Do it together individually, but then you can share your answers. This could be a great springboard into deepening and improving your relationship. If you're single, keep this handy so that when you are in a relationship, you can have this to assess, and you can look through it and make this part of your manifestation of your next great mate by having this as part and integrated into part of your own way of being. Also, for everybody here, you're going to get invited to a master class my husband and I are doing together. Very excited to bring him in on this, and we're going to go over these 14 modules, and it's going to be conversation style from a man's perspective and the woman's perspective.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
What
so
a
that will
generous
happen this
gift.
summer, and you'll be in the email list, and that's a free entry. Everybody here gets a free ticket to that, and we're just gonna lay it all on the line and out on the table, and hope that
All
we
right.
just inspire deeper love again for everybody.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
so much for being with us today and sharing from your heart the way that you do and the great work that you're doing. And I really appreciate the wonderful gift. And for the audience, right after this interview, you're going to see a place that you can click on. That is a link that will get you right to how you can get this gift directly from Theresa. So look for that right after we close. And so again, thank you, Theresa, and I look forward to your continued work and our continued contact.
Thank you so much.